we're going to talk a bit about the first of the 5 characteristics of light scenarios, which is direction. The 5 scenarios, direction, intensity, temperature, contrast, and hardness, are all elements of how we deal with light when it comes to photography. A direction, however, is where we start because that establishes the position of the key light. The key light is the primary light source in a photograph. For instance, if you're outside, the sun is your key light. The key light tends to be the brightest light, and in this first scenario we're going to use only one light, and we're going to study something called the lighting compass. Now, the lighting compass is essentially 8 different positions that circle the subject, that circle around what it is that you're making an image from. And in this scenario, the camera remains still. So when we're working with this compass, we're simply starting with a light in one position and then moving it to the next position, then moving it to the next position, and so on and so forth. Now, when we're starting the experiment, since the camera is not going to move at all, a tripod is the best tool to use. Tripods range in price from several $100s to maybe $25, $30. Tripod's job is one thing: hold the camera steady. So the idea is to find a tripod that is heavy enough and sturdy enough to hold the equipment that you have. If you have something very light, like your phone, a small, flimsy little tripod will work. If you have a camera like mine, which has a little bit of weight to it, you need something more sturdy. Also, you want to consider things like the height of the tripod, how tall can it go, what kind of head it has, that's the thing it attaches to, whether you're going to be doing video and all of those kinds of things. I highly recommend, almost require, tripods for this class. Let's talk about the light just a little bit. Remember, we have light settings on our LEDs that we use in the studio. We want to set that light to 70% to start off, and the balance or the temperature of that light to 5500 K. Those are the settings there. Our camera will have a particular setting as well. If you recall, we have 200 ISO. We have the white balance set to daylight, and we have the shooting mode set to monochrome or black and white. The idea is that we don't need color information on this first part of the experiment. We'll only be using color for the temperature part of the 5 characteristics. So when we're starting, you can set your camera on automatic because this is not about functioning with the camera. This is all about seeing through the lens and composing on our set. This set is this entire area here. You have bottles for your subject. The bottles aren't meant to have any special meaning to you. They're simply meant to be there as objects to which the light can bounce off of. As I mentioned, you're going to be starting with the main light source in position number 1, which is right next to the camera itself. Be careful not to let the camera block the light at all, otherwise you're going to have some funky shadows. So the light is set, it is aiming toward the subjects, it is even with the direction of the camera. Position 2 is over in the corner, position 3 goes over to the side, position 4 begins what we call short lighting, and that's over in the back corner. Then we have back lighting, which is directly behind. Then we have another short lighting. Then we have side lighting. Then we have the 45-degree angle closest to me and brings us back to position 1. So it just goes in a circle. What you're doing is you're going to compose, using these bottles, a variety of different compositions. You are not making images of bottles. You are, in fact, just using the bottles in order to create a lighting scenario. So it wouldn't matter that I have the bottle something like this close to the subject or to the camera, because I'm not concerned with it being a bottle at all. In fact, being a bottle is not interesting. However, when I start to use the bottle, as you can see here, I'm just moving a bottle behind this other one. Suddenly what I'm doing is I'm starting to shape a composition as I go. So again, I am using the quality of light. You can see here that I have a reflection that's happening right on there, a shadow that's happening right on that bottle there. I could also adjust the focus. So if I start adjusting focus, you can see I could go from focusing on the very back bottle all the way to the very front bottle. So you can adjust your focus, which is on manual control when you're in the studio, in order to arrive at different solutions. Remember, focus tells the viewer just exactly where you want them to look. You do have intensity control on your light, where you can turn down the intensity or turn up the intensity. So if I wanted a darker image, I could turn down the intensity of the light. If I wanted it brighter, I could turn up the intensity. Again, refocusing as I go in order to get the image that I am most interested in capturing. Remember your two-dimensional design principles, this idea of tension, building tensions in the middle of the space. I'm creating this whole space here now by putting this bottle here. If I'm not interested in the space over here, this space from here over, I would simply try to mitigate that by adding other bottles there to kind of run right off the edge. And now what I'm doing is I'm starting to compose based on the shape or the picture frame. That is the idea. Now, once you start moving the light to the different positions, you would take a picture of this, by the way. You would make images of this. You would then reconstruct it and do different compositions just like this, with it in position 1, your camera there. Raise your camera up and down, that's cool, but don't move it around. After you've done, let's say, 6, 7 different compositions, 6, 7 usually is enough to get something that's satisfactory. Then you're going to be moving the light into the next position. When you get to the light to the next position, you will suddenly see that the shadows are all changing and your options for how the image can be composed will change dramatically. So when I move this light over to another position, now what I'm getting is a diagonal lighting that's happening. I'm getting side lighting, and you were able to see how that changed the nature of the image. Suddenly, I have all sorts of other options. Now I'm sculpting with light in ways in which I didn't have before. You can see right here, if I simply move this around, I can find where the light is catching it and literally draw with the light. That's what we're doing here. We're not making images of bottles, are we? What we're doing is we are using the bottles in order to create a composition that we are excited about, something that is dynamic, something that moves the eye around, things like this. The bottles mean nothing. The bottles are just objects. After you make 4 or 5 compositions from this position, you would then move to the next positions. From the side, you would have an image. You can see it changes it completely. And then from a short lighting position, which is on the back corner, you can see suddenly I have, wow, a lot of different wonderful options here. I've transformed the composition completely by simply moving where the key light is positioned on the table. So after you've gotten through all of those, you're going to select one of your most successful images according to you. You get to decide that. You're choosing one successful image from each of the 8 different positions. So on the compass, you're choosing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and then one of your choice. It could be any of the positions. So that's 9 total that you're going to select out of the dozens and dozens of images that you shot. You'll then post those, of course, to the blog. So that's what we have for direction. It's a multi-part experiment within a multi-part experiment. It is not meant to be confusing. In fact, it's meant to be so simple that your options are really, really streamlined to work with. But you will see what kind of complexity in terms of imagery you can create by simply using one light, positioning it at different spots on the lighting compass. So, happy shooting, and we'll see you in the next video. Bye-bye.